Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 55 of the All Dolphins podcast. No,
Double
Omar.
nickel.
Double nickel. No, Omar. I'm not going with Jerome Baker. That's too easy to go with the current players.
No, what about Columnist?
No, I'm actually going with Joey Porter for a couple
Easy.
a couple of really good years as a Dolphin pass rusher, including a great forgotten contribution to the famous Wildcat game of 2008, when the big story, of course, was the unveiling of the Wildcat, Ronnie Brown going nuts. But, oh, by the way, Joey Porter had 4 sacks, or was it 4.5 in that game? 38-13 win at Gillette Stadium. So had to Joey Porter, whose son now is beginning his NFL career as a rookie second-round pick.
And since people on this podcast like the stories that I tell, I'm going to tell a Joey Porter story, or we tell, because you tell stories as well. Joey Porter was one of my favorite guys to cover, primarily because I was a young whippersnapper in the locker room, and Joey didn't like a lot of people, but he liked me. And
Why? Sorry.
I was young, I was hip, I was impressionable, and Joey was always nice to me. So I remember everybody would be scared to go up and talk to Joey, and people be like, "Omar, go see if he wants to talk." And I go up there and I start talking to him, and he's like, when you start talking to me, everybody just gonna start crowding up around you. And I was like, yeah, they sent me over here, Joey. And so that's how we got interviews. But also, Joey Porter educated me on the thought process of a pass rusher. And Joey said to me, in football, there's going to be a lot of stalemates. All you need every single game is you need 3 clear-cut victories a game to be an all-pro Pro Bowl player.
Mm-hmm.
3 wins. All you got to do is get 3. You got 40, 50 snaps. You got to get 3 wins out of those 40, 50 snaps, and you're a Pro Bowl player. And he's right. He's absolutely right.
And look at it this way. Guy could have 17 sacks in a season. That's a Pro Bowl season. That's 1 sack per game. He could get stoned the other 50 plays he's pass rushing, and he still gets 17 sacks. So that's good. And another 55 I had considered was Junior Seau. And my quick Junior Seau story was in 1999. Again, I'm a lot older than you, so my stories tend to go older. 1999, the Dolphins went to San Diego for joint practices with the Chargers. And at the time, I was not only doing Dolphin Digest, but also football news. So went to San Diego for the joint practices, had a sit-down interview of 30 minutes with Junior Seau, arranged by the Chargers. He was great. Bobby Ross, their coach back then, gem of a guy. And this was in the days before digital recorders, so I had my old recorders with the tape that roll. And to safeguard myself, I also wrote down notes on a pad and had this great interview. I mean, he was very forthcoming about everything. And then the game goes on, and this was for a big feature on Junior Seau a couple of weeks later. And I come back to Miami, and if you've ever had those tapes with the two heads like that in the tape, the actual tape, and have it get tangled and all of a sudden go all haywire and lose everything on the tape. So my wonderful interview got reduced to all the notes that I could muster while I was doing it very quickly. So anyway, that's my story about Junior Seau number 55. So today is Saturday, August 26th. It's the day the Dolphins wrap up the preseason with their game against the Jacksonville Jaguars at, I don't even know, is it Alltel Stadium these days? I don't even know what it's called anymore. Tough to keep up with all the stadium name changes. So yesterday we kind of touched on some of the intriguing offensive position battles heading into this preseason finale. So makes sense that today we look at defensive position battles. So Omar, what's really striking you there?
Well, we got to start with the defensive lineman. I think it's a tough decision that you have between Deshaun Hand, who is injured right now, which is also going to make that even tougher. Do you keep him on the 53? How long is the injury that he has? Do you put him on IR? Do you waive him with an injury settlement? Do you try to practice squad him? I have no idea how that's going to play out. But as I said in a previous podcast, I hear that Vic Fangio likes him as a fan. Who knows how that goes? I personally believe every coach gets probably one pull in their unit in terms of the heavyweight. You know, what card do you want to play to get a player on the roster? Defensive coordinators probably get about 3. Special teams coaches probably get about 5. Is Vic Fangio using his card on Deshaun Hand? I don't know about that. Brandon Peely is another one. The thing about Brandon Peely is I think he's done enough to be on the 53. I think he's more practice squad deserving. I'm not worried about cutting him and somebody claiming him. However, he is the type of player that people claim.
Well, you're kind of going against your argument there. I absolutely think he's going to get claimed. I absolutely think right now he's making the 53. And
might make it initially for the first week or the first couple of weeks and then be put on the practice squad. I'm not saying I'm not. I think he's deserving of being on the 53. I think he's a young guy who at first I was just like, yeah, I don't see it. Then I started to see it the second week of camp. I like it. But as I've said to you numerous times, I'm not worried about anybody claiming anything on this roster. Not a single thing.
And as I've answered numerous times, I think that's a somewhat unfairly broad statement. I do think Brandon Peely would get picked up. Big guys who can move don't grow on trees. And
They
he's
don't.
a guy who can move, and it's a commodity. I don't think you let go. So I have him on my, particularly since Deshaun Hand is such a question mark right now with the knee injury. And also, are we really sure that Vic Fangio would have 3 cards to play given his stature as a defensive coordinator?
No, he okay, go ahead, continue.
As you said, 3 for him and 5 for the special teams coordinator, Danny Crossman.
Well, Danny Crossman needs 5. He needs 5.
Yeah, I'm going to suggest
he's not sitting on job security, so he needs 5 because you can't have any excuses why your unit is mediocre this year.
Correct, but if Vic Fangio wants a guy for defense and Danny Crossman says, well, that's going to cut into my special teams favorites because I need guys, I'm thinking Vic Fangio wins that battle, personally speaking.
I disagree with you because when that unit performs and if they're mediocre, Crossman's being fired. So I'm not leaving him shorthanded because I am of the opinion, and I've always, special teams is 1/3 of the game.
No, it's not. That's where you're wrong. It's not. Count the snaps. Count the snaps.
Okay. In terms of the impact that it has on the game and field position, yes, okay. Offense, defense, they get 60 snaps. Special teams might get, 30 snaps? But
yeah, that's a lot. Okay, let's say 20. Let's say 25, and sometimes anywhere between 60 and 75 for offense and defense.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm not making decisions to benefit the special teams at the cost or sacrifice of offense or defense. That's just me.
You're talking about backup offensive players, but I don't want to fight with you about this.
Come on, let's fight, damn it.
I listen. I mean, and these are the conversations that people have. Like, how many guys do you think Crossman will get?
2.
2? I can't even build a punt return unit with 2.
But we're talking guys that Fangio or Frank Smith, the offensive coordinator, would say, yeah, don't really need him. But if you really want him, go ahead. We'll keep him for you.
You got to let him get at least 4. Let him have 2 gunners at least. Like you gotta get, that man has to have something.
I understand, but if he picks Elijah Campbell, for example, Vic Fangio would be like,
he's not dumb enough to pick Elijah Campbell. Elijah Campbell's fine. Like, Elijah Campbell's safe. Like,
but he's somebody that Crossman can have with a Fangio's not going to find him on it. If he picks somebody, for example, before he got hurt, and no offense to the player, because he's very good on special teams and he's got position versatility in the secondary. But before he got hurt, had Danny Crossman said, I want Justin Bethel for my special teams, I think if Vic Fangio goes, I need somebody a little bit higher up for my depth at cornerback. Sorry, Danny, you're not getting Justin Bethel. And I think if it comes to a little battle like that, I'm thinking Vic Fangio wins. I could be wrong. But
I agree with you. Vic Fangio wins in that battle, but that's also because I've had other options like Elijah Campbell for my gunner. But yes, we're close. We're close here. Okay. That man needs to get at least 4 players because He's on the hot seat. If there was a coach on the hot seat.
No, and then completely veering off topic, but going back to the defensive line, here's the other thing too, because you're not sure about Brandon Peely. Okay, so who do you have behind Christian Wilkins, Zach Sealer, and Raekwon Davis? As interior defensive linemen, and don't give me Emmanuel Ogba, who's an edge player.
Okay, touche. You win. I don't have anybody, so Peely has to stay.
Whoa, Brandon Peely, you're welcome. I got you on the 53. You're welcome.
I mean, you backed me into a corner. What do I don't have a healthy hand, pun intended. So
very good.
Yeah, I thought you liked that one.
Very good.
Let's get to the linebackers. I believe Aubrey Miller, I think he's going to get a vote on defense, and I think he's going to get a vote on special teams. I think he's going to be on the 53. And then guys like Mitchell Agude and Jarrett Nelson, I think they're more of maybe Cameron Good, maybe. I think they're more of practice squad work.
Garrett Nelson.
I said Garrett. What did I say?
Garrett, but that's okay. I love you anyway.
It's the G is throwing me off.
Okay.
Garrett. No, Garrett.
Okay. So you think he makes a team with Channing Tindall or instead of?
I think Channing Tindall makes the team. I think he's going to be grandfathered in because of this is his last year on scholarship, because of his draft status. The athleticism is there. The thought is maybe the light bulb comes on at some point on special teams, and then maybe on defense. The light bulb's got to come on special teams. Otherwise, he's probably headed to my practice squad. I waive him. Somebody claims him. I don't even think twice.
Okay, so we're keeping 5 inside linebackers now because Baker, Long, Duke Riley, and the 2 young guys. Along, no,
only 2 young. Okay, 5.
Baker. Long, Baker, Riley, Miller, Tindall.
Yes,
along with
Van
5
Ginkel
edge rushers, Van Ginkel, Agba, Phillips, Chubb, Malik Reed.
Yes. I need those units for my special team. So yes.
Okay, so that's
I mean, if I'm dumping one, maybe I look at Aubrey Miller and say, hey, you can go on my practice squad, but I probably keep him as my initial player. And maybe I cut a Malik Reed and bring him back.
But you would be okay if somebody picks him up because you're assuming
Malik is a vested veteran, and I don't think he's got a whole contract guaranteed. I'm just being flexible here, in terms of not wanting to cut guys that I don't want to be claimed, and buying myself some time till I can put those injured guys on IR, which is a day.
And to me, I get the feeling you terminate the contract of Malik Reed, and he looks around the NFL. It's not
over Channing Tindall. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm doing that.
Okay.
Now that I'm talking, you're talking me out of it. Like, yeah, I don't care what happens to Channing Tindall.
Wow. And to me, it comes down to Tindall or Miller. It can't be both. I don't think you can have both on the roster. I would think that Miller's
the better player. Probably better special teamer.
Fair enough. But have the Dolphins reached a point where they've given up on Tindall his ceiling? Because Tindall, based on athleticism and size, has a higher ceiling than Aubrey Miller.
Yes, he's supposed to be Jerome Baker's replacement. The problem is, are you confident that he could be Jerome Baker's replacement? And my answer to that question would be no. But if I pull the plug right now, then I look like a dummy if I'm Chris Grier, because I've wasted yet another draft pick with a bad selection. And I can't really afford that black eye, even though nobody cares, really.
Especially, and the other issue you have is are you holding your breath that you don't release Channing Tindall and he goes somewhere and balls out?
Oh, I don't worry about that.
Okay. No, you're not worried about anybody. I mean,
I'm not worried. That is not a worry or concern that I have about Channing Tindall. You ready to move on to the secondary?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay. The one thing that I have not been able to able to put up this week, which I've always had the intentions of, but the Jonathan Taylor trade came up. and been busy,
Kind of
is Ronaldo Hill, the secondary coach. He said to me that there's a 3-player battle for that safety spot opposite Javon Holland, and it's down to Deshaun Elliott, Elijah Campbell, and Verone McKinley, which to me was just like, what? Huh? Jerome McKinley? Yeah. And then we got to see Jerome McKinley get some action in there with the ones. I don't care. And I'm like, oh, I guess Verone McKinley actually is in the mix for, competing for this job. Now, could it be a charity in the mix and you're going to be on my practice squad? And I just want to make you feel comfortable and confident that we have a vision and plan for you as opposed to letting you sign somewhere else? Sure. But I was a little surprised that he's in the mix. That makes me have to consider him for my 53. But also, I was a little surprised that Brandon Jones wasn't mentioned.
Well, the problem is he hasn't really practiced. I mean, done very, very, very few team period reps the last couple of weeks. Coming off a torn ACL, not necessarily a perfect fit scheme for Vic Fangio.
No.
I was always of the opinion whenever I heard in the offseason, well, it's Brandon Jones' job, and I was like, oh, really? It is? Okay. But what do you do with him? Do you just go ahead and outright cut him?
I don't know.
Because there's value there in the player.
Who are you talking about? Brandon Jones? You're not cutting Brandon Jones. No, you're not cutting Brandon Jones.
Okay, but how many safeties are we keeping? Again, this is great to keep everybody, but personally, I haven't seen it from Verone McKinley this summer. I was just as flabbergasted as you were when Ronaldo Hill made that comment. Deshaun Elliott, I can see it. Elijah Campbell, I can see it. And this is where we have to mention our buddy Trill Williams, who.
Yeah, practice squad, man.
Seen anything?
Yeah, we were both very high on Trill. We both talked him up. Trill's last camp compared to this camp, there is no comparison. Maybe the transition but that's my thing about it, especially when they had this thirst level at cornerback. Because they have a thirst level at cornerback. Trill was a nickel cornerback at Syracuse. You didn't even test him out there. You didn't even try him. You didn't even put him on the boundary. Like, do you just not like Trill Williams? Is that's where we are? Because this is a new coaching staff, new regime, right. And they don't know Trill Williams. They don't know what he did last camp. I'm of the opinion at this present moment that Trill Williams will not make the 53 and will be practice squad option. You want to sign, you don't want to sign. I actually like Kedron Smith. And if Kedron Smith gets a practice squad spot over Trill Williams, wouldn't shock me. Ethan Bonner's, he plays, he contributes. We don't see Trill Williams really doing anything.
No, but he's another guy who's coming off a torn ACL. And again, we don't know exactly. They were taking it slowly with his reps early on, and even now he's not taking much. I'll tell you this, Kedron Smith, I would not be floored if he made the 53. There's something there with that kid.
Kedron Smith, you would be shocked.
No, I would not be shocked if he made the 53
over Keon Crossan. Because that's another play we have to discuss.
Yeah, but he has no money guaranteed. It's $3 million. That's not guaranteed. It's not painful. And I get he's got special teams value. Kedron Smith does not have special teams value. Is that the deal?
So what are you saying about Kedron Smith? And what are you saying about Keon Crossan?
That he's not a lock to make the team.
He's on or off your 53?
The last one, I believe I had him off. Sorry, I know it hurts your heart because you're a special teams guy, but
no, I'm not a special teams guy. I don't know Kedron Smith, and he don't know me, and he took great offense to the fact that I called him a special teams player.
Oh, that's Crossan you're talking about now, not
Crossan. Yes, I'm sorry, Crossan. I don't know Kedron Smith either. I don't know either of those dudes, and
kids look good.
Yeah, what happens. Kadron Smith, here's the thing that I will say about him, and I don't know much because I didn't see a tremendous body of work during the during training camp and OTAs from him because he was hurt during both periods.
Ooh, crossing you back to
Crossing, yes, crossing. Okay, I keep mixing up the K.
Yeah, no,
K
you're
guy.
confusing me here.
Yeah, with Crossing, I didn't see much. He's hurt. He practiced this week. Okay, I don't know what to expect. You saw him last year. Good player, bad player, or what?
He's okay. And my most vivid memory of him from last year is sorry, but he got away with a massive DPI at the end of the Chicago game on a third down. One play before the Dolphins got the stop on fourth down to clinch the win. Outside of that, I'm struggling to find any plays that stood out from him. I know he contributed on special teams, but I remember from last training camp, he's very, very fast. And that was the book on him when he came over as a free agent. But again, he's been slow. He didn't do a whole lot during training camp because he was nursing an undisclosed injury. And again, I didn't have him on my 53, but it's not like I'd be shocked if he did. He's going to be one of those guys who's going to be one of the final roster decisions, one way or the other, as far as I'm concerned.
Here's what I'll say about Keon Cross, and I've said it for months now, which is probably why I'm not probably his favorite person in the world. Great opportunity to create $3 million in cap space. And at this very moment, you need to be pinching pennies. And hey, if you want to bring him back for a veteran minimum, go for it. But $3 million, I think it's probably a bad decision on your end.
That's fair. And he's going to get offended by that. But unfortunately, that's life.
This is the business of the NFL, man. And tough titty says the kitty. It's, if you don't like, these are tough decisions, tough conversations, and don't act like NFL teams don't shake down players all the time.
Right.
And fans look the other way when the team does it and shakes down a player. But then when the player's shaking down a team, fans are like, oh, whoa, wait a minute. You had a contract. So that, I'm sorry, let me get off my soapbox. You want to get into some of these questions, or you want to continue to cut down the cornerback unit?
However you want to do it, my man.
All right, Jason Sarney asks, how much do you love and appreciate Brandon Peely, sponge-worthy or not?
That's your term, so that's a question for you.
Sponge-worthy is a reference to a Seinfeld episode about Alain and whether or not she had sex with guys. That was back when people used the sponge, and they discontinued the sponge, and then she got a box worth of sponge, and she had to figure out whether a guy was sponge-worthy to use the sponge on him or not. Okay, and I've been using that term for over a decade. Brandon Peely is sponge-worthy. However, I might keep him on my 53 for 2 weeks and then put him on my practice squad.
Does that by definition make him not sponge-worthy?
No, it makes him sponge-worthy, but just barely.
For 2 weeks, okay.
You?
Sponge-worthy is pretty strong. I don't know if I'd go that far. I like him, and he's making my 53. I'll go.
Okay. Crunch Time Podcast. I'm shouting out a podcast now. Can the Dolphins get to the point where they're always a lock for the playoffs because of Tua? I'll let you answer that question.
To be determined.
Wow, to be determined. Okay. All right.
Yeah, to be determined. He's not there yet. And if I know, see, and this is the difference between you and I. You got him there, going there in 2023 without a question. I still need to see it. And I would say last year, a whole lot of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle getting wide open the entire season.
You will be hearing from Tuanon. No.
Nothing I haven't said before.
Listen. He is that player if he is healthy. We need to see if he can be healthy. However, next year when you have to give him a $45 to $50 million contract and the apocalypse begins and your roster gets watered down, how good can your executives put together a team on a budget, a real budget?
Can I add one more point here real quickly though?
Yes.
Because you go slam dunk with the old, if healthy. Let's not forget that Dolphins lost the last 4 games he started last year.
Okay, that's fair.
This is why, to me, it's to be determined. And
he was also an MVP conversation. Don't forget that. Keep sure you mention that when you mentioned the December fall.
Sure, through November. And I would argue that Tyreek Hill should have been the one who was in the MVP conversation, but there's a bias towards quarterbacks against wide receivers. And then also the other point too, before we start going like automatic for the playoffs, if Tua becomes that guy, then the Dolphins with Dan Marino missed the playoffs 4 straight years in the late 80s. So there's that as well. It's not,
and that's why I brought up the roster, because right now your executive and your contract creator, and I call names, Brandon Seau and Chris Grier, they're not good enough at their jobs to keep this roster afloat with a real quarterback contract. If Tua's making Justin Herbert money, or even if he's making not Justin Herbert, but who's the other Giants quarterback?
Daniel Jones.
If Tua's making Daniel Jones money, Chris Grier is going to have to be way better at his job, and Brandon Shore is going to have to be way better at his job, and neither of them are not that good at their jobs right now.
But except in fairness to them, they've never been in a situation where they had to juggle a roster around that kind of quarterback, making that kind of salary, and you're giving me big eyes. When's the last time the Dolphins had a quarterback with that kind of salary?
Back in the day, Ryan Tannehill wasn't getting pennies. He was making good money. Yeah. Now, was it the cap was a lot smaller, but Ryan was one of the highest paid players in the league. Ryan has walked away with over $200 million in his career. Like,
he's done well for himself.
He's done well for himself for being an average quarterback. But contractually, these contracts got to get better. You shouldn't have to trade for every top player on your team. There should be some that you actually draft. And then when you draft them, you better sign them early so you can actually afford them and retain them. Like, you've got 3 players now, Javon Holland, Jalen Phillips, and Jalen Waddle. Those guys are going to get pace-setting contracts. And how can they get pace-setting contracts with a quarterback who needs this contract, with Christian Wilkins, who's wanting $20 million a year, with and then next year when you have to restructure Tyreek so you can create cap space, Tyreek's going to want to be the highest paid receiver in the NFL. These are problems.
Really?
He deserves to be the highest paid receiver in the NFL too.
Well, Jefferson might have something to say about that, but that's
Jefferson can say whatever you want to say, but Tyreek deserves to be the highest paid receiver in the league. Tyreek is the top. Name me a better playmaker in the NFL than Tyreek Hill.
I think if you see ranking surveys around the league, even those that quote executives and coaches, I think pretty much universally you're going to see Justin Jefferson first. Tyreek will be in the top 3 all over the place. So people don't get offended and Dolphin fans don't go crazy. Let's just say it's completely clear that Tyreek's the top 3 wide receiver in the NFL. And the most disruptive because of his speed. That I will say.
The most disruptive offensive weapon in the NFL. There is no other weapon like him in the NFL. Name me somebody else. None.
No, there isn't. I mean, but we could haggle and go the most disruptive.
That makes you the number 1 receiver. Tyreek doesn't need an elite quarterback to be a freak of nature.
Kirk Cousins an elite quarterback?
All right, stop. We're not going to do this.
But is that not a good point?
I think Kirk Cousins is a top 15 quarterback in the NFL.
Is that elite?
No.
Thank you. Okay, next question. Yes.
Has chosen done enough to be the number 3, which is clearly a no.
Braxton is the number 3.
Yes.
That's
a question for Finn from Finn's dude. Mad Doggo asks, and he's got the dog avatar. You know what I always say about dog avatars?
No, but go ahead.
People who put up dog avatars are people that only their dogs can love.
Wow. I'm not touching
Yeah. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. Don't worry.
Man.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
When we inevitably have to do a roster reset within the next few years, will it be as bad as Brian Flores' first year? No. It's not going to be that bad.
Ooh,
Let me give you a perfect example of a roster reset.
Rams.
It's what the New Orleans Saints did last year when they let Teron Armstead and a number of their top free agents go.
Mhm.
And they'll waive, or what the Rams did when they waived Jalen Ramsey, or traded Jalen Ramsey and waived the linebacker. You're just getting rid of 3 top salaries and basically not re-signing your free agents, and then roster is reset. It could happen this next offseason where you're not re-signing any of your guys and you just start young. But the problem is you don't have draft picks to start young. So you're patching the roster with guys on 1-year contracts or undrafted players.
No, the best definition to me of roster reset is you're making a handful of roster decisions involving big name guys purely to help your cap situation. That's basically.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's get to another one. Should the Dolphins pick up a tight end when the waiver wires cut? This comes from Javi. Is Smythe the only available option right now? No, you got Alec Ingold.
I refuse to even give you that question because you're such a tight end hater on this team.
Wait, is it not valid? Tell me what they've done. Name me 3 things they've done.
Oh, they've completely neglected the tight end position without question. I agree with that. Now, if you think you're getting a stud tight end off waivers, my stance on waiver pickups, and I did the research, by the way, and at some point I'm going to do a big story on alldolphins.com. I have chronicled, because I'm that kind of a sicko, since 2010, every single player the Dolphins have claimed on waivers. Okay. And the number who have panned out, let me just say, is not very big.
So you are a sick man.
Thank you very little. So the idea that the Dolphins are magically going to get a stud tight end off waivers, probably not realistic. Having said all that, and this is another point I've made, there is probably not an offense in the NFL that relies on the tight end less than the Dolphins. Okay, it's wide receiver based, running back based. It really, the tight ends are there, catch the occasional pass to convert third downs and block. So Durham Smythe is a solid player for what they want to do with their tight ends. It would be great, yes, to have a George Kittle or Travis Kelce or one of those guys, but they're few and far between number 1 and number 2. That's not what the Dolphin offense is.
Gino asked a very good question, and this will be the last lengthy question that we will discuss, and then we'll hit some of these rapid fire. Who is the most impressive player in training camp so far, and also who is the most disappointing?
Well, you did Friday on alldolphins.com. You wrote a story about your training camp superlatives. So I guess I should give you the floor.
I thought that the most impressive player I gave in my training camp superlatives, and I don't want to give it all away, but Zach Sealer got my top training camp MVP honors. I don't know how you feel about that. Maybe this is the time that you should chime in. I explained it as such. Christian Wilkins is disqualified because Christian Wilkins missed 3 weeks of training camp by choice. And I kind of disqualified Tyreek Hill because I've seen last training camp's Tyreek Hill, who was dominant and scary. He was the boogeyman. And this training camp of Tyreek, where he was very good, impressive.
Yeah.
Probably the top offensive player, if not the practice's top player every day. But Tyreek was pacing himself. And I understand why he's pacing himself. This don't matter. So, but the guy who was busting his butt every single day, even when he got hurt and was an idiot trying to get on the practice field, is Zach Sealer. And I really hope that he has a phenomenal season and is healthy so that he can maximize his earnings.
Completely agree with you. And you know how much I have bugged you about Sealer, how good he's been throughout camp. And yes, until Christian Wilkins did the quote unquote hold in, he would have won that award. Once he started holding in and not doing team periods, Zach Sealer overtook him.
Yes.
Oh, there was most disappointing. It's the low.
Come on, it's easy, Liam Eichenberg.
I was gonna say the low hanging fruit is Liam Eichenberg.
It's easy, Liam Eichenberg. There's no other. Dude, you can't go from starter to 13. Like, that's clearly you're the most disappointing guy right now. Kevin wants to know if Chris Grier could have a do-over in his tenure, where do you think he would use it?
Oh, Jesus, I'm not touching that.
What?
Holy crap. I'm not touching
just say it.
Okay. I will say it. I will say it. He'd have picked Jonathan Taylor at number 30 in the 2020 first round instead of Noah Benogany, and he'd have picked Justin Jefferson at 18 instead of Austin Jackson.
That's not what you're going to say. That's not what you were going to say.
Maybe he might have made a different
what you were going to say.
Too.
That is not what you're going to say, and you're lying to your people. You're going to say he should have picked Herbert at 5 instead of Tua. And I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong, but I just think that.
But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. That chapter to me is not nearly as closed, and it's not nearly as a slam dunk whiff as Austin Jackson over Justin Jefferson, even if Austin Jackson pans out the way we hope to, based on what we've seen, or Noah Benogany over Jonathan Taylor, which are clear whiffs.
Absolutely. What's your favorite moment of 2023 training camp? Brandon asks.
You first.
I got to go to my man crush. I got to go to Alec Ingold. He probably has no idea I crush on him. None. Loved his musical taste.
We'll tell him. Go ahead.
I loved his musical taste. Number one. I remember seeing them do a run day specific drill during OTAs, inside run. It was mini camp, and I was like, this guy was like wrecking people, and I was like, wait a minute, whoa, he's that good, healthy, he's that good. Like, I saw him last year, he wasn't probably all the way healthy. Now that he's healthy, he can do everything: inline block, carry the ball, catch the ball out of the backfield. I'm not going to say he's Keith Byers, but that's who he reminds me of a lot. Look at you. I can bring up old players.
Man, wow. That's an interesting comp. Keith Byers is a better running back. I mean, no offense to Alec Ingold. Keith Byers was like a stud running back at Ohio State. That's like I had somebody, there's a fan on social media, like, wanted to compare Alec Ingold if the Dolphins could use him like Mike Allstott. I was like, whoa.
No. No,
I mean, Mike Allstott was a bear at Purdue as a running back, and that's not what Ingold is. I can't. I'll be on. Let's go to the next question. I don't have a moment that really jumps out to me, and too many things swimming in my head. I will say I love the ending of training camp when they had Kader Kohou running a route against David Davis covering him. I thought that was very cool. But as far as a great moment that stands out, I can't say there's nothing really at the moment.
My least favorite moment was seeing Jalen Ramsey go down. Yep. And that drastically altered the scope of the season for me. And I'm just being honest. Because I think you had 2 elite cornerbacks. You would have a top 5, if not a top 3 defense. And you're not going to have that this season. So, disappointing.
It could be top 10 if things go right, and that should be enough, you know. And it would be a major improvement over last year. And if the offense can maintain what it did last year, I went back. I think the last time Dolphins at top 10 offense and defense, I believe, was 1992, which was the last time they went to the AFC Championship game.
Oh, you should write that.
How about that?
Dolphins.com.
I believe I did write that, actually.
Well, you should repurpose it.
I should.